Yes, for the subject everybody's waiting for. I'm still trying to piece together what exactly happened. So we're going to try to take it from the top with Larry, starting with Caroline's cryptic message leading up to the show. I'm not giving this much credence, but a lot of people have put their tinfoil hats on for it, so I'll play it for you all.
Okay.
Is he not?
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you, this speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I love it all. And you wrote most of it, you said.
I can't take credit. In true Donald Trump fashion, the man puts his pen to the paper himself. So it's a lot of
shots. There will be shots fired. Not a really good look.
Okay, so let me preface this with, I watched what happened and I came to some conclusions. But before I put those conclusions out in public, I called one of my buddies, J. Lawrence Cunningham, aka Larry, another Larry, who had a distinguished career with the Secret Service. He ran Ronald Reagan's security detail after the Reagan assassination attempt, or the attempt, when Reagan almost died. So Larry took over that. And then he instituted some physical training standards, as well as ran the academy in terms of procedures you're supposed to follow. I'm sad to say many of the things that he put in place have been taken out of the Secret Service, which is one of the reasons they're so screwed up. And then I also checked with another buddy, retired. He did a stint with the FBI and the hostage rescue team, as well as worked with CIA and operations overseas. So they're both friends. And, I always bounce some of these things off. What I saw first that was alarming and inexplicable, the first person taken off that stage was J.D. Vance. Remember? They got the camera. They hear these shots. Secret Service running. They grab Vance. They hustle him off. Trump sits over there for another 30 seconds before they get him up and off the stage. That violates every Secret Service protocol in the book. Need to ask why. Why was that done? Where the hell were the other Secret Service agents? They should have snatched Trump's ass out of that chair immediately and got him out of the way. They didn't. So I go, that's unusual. And when you watch Trump sitting there, even the gunshots are going off, you can hear the gunshots. And people in the audience starting to hit the dirt. Trump's sitting there just looking out. Like he knows he knows something's going on. Yeah, you see her face. Melania is sort of horrified, and Trump's looking to the side. He didn't flinch. So put that down there as one data point. Second data point. So understand how the security perimeter is supposed to be put up. And again, I can think these through logically, how I know it's supposed to be, but I double checked with my Secret Service buddy who actually did it real world. In fact, after he took over the Secret Service detail for Ronald Reagan, one of the first places they had to go to was that hotel, the Hilton there, the Capitol Hilton, or the Washington Hilton, which is up off just above DuPont Circle. So first of all, you establish a perimeter around the hotel. In other words, nobody gets to just walk in on the hotel off the street. You've got to have a reason to be there. And that means you also have strict procedures at the delivery entrances. As I recall, I think there are only two main entrances into the hotel. One's on Connecticut Avenue. The other is down just to the side. And then you got the delivery area in the back. So you secure all that. Then inside, you secure the area that it leads to where the ballroom is, where this event's going to take place. And there you're supposed to have, the metal detectors, and you should have a minimum of two guys with guns. You can have women too, but two law enforcement officers, Secret Service. It could be Capitol Police, whoever, but they're under the control of the Secret Service. They're there with their arms ready. That if somebody rushes through that checkpoint, you can shoot them. Apparently, they didn't have that, and that would have been replicated at the actual entrance because this guy was in the hotel, so he got through the first layer of security because he was a guest. But then he came out of his room with a shotgun, coming down an elevator with a shot. You can't hide that, and gets off the elevator. With those elevators, there should have been somebody there at that checkpoint again to observe, to monitor, to see if there's anything unusual headed towards the area. That should have been the first place he would have been detected. Didn't do that. Apparently, he got to the next checkpoint, rushed through, didn't get shot because there was nobody there ready to shoot him. And then he starts shooting. And then when the shooting is over, you see some of the Secret Service and law enforcement, they start pulling guns and appear to fire at him. Yet when he is down on the ground, you don't see a single bullet hole in him. Mm-mm. And what you don't see as well, if he had been shot in the legs, initially I thought, could he have been shot in the legs? Because that, I got a dead nephew who got shot in his left femur. He got bleeds, and, you can bleed out real quick. But you would have, if he got shot in the legs, you would have had a medical technician or the police with, gloves on, applying a tourniquet, doing something. They didn't have that. So how the hell did they get this guy stopped? Because with all the law enforcement there with guns, he should have been filled up with enough lead that they could have used him as an anchor in the Potomac, but he didn't have that. And I'm thinking, God, that's strange. How did they get him down on the ground? Do you quote tackle? You tackle a guy who's carrying a firearm and has already shot somebody. You don't tackle him, you shoot him. And you shoot them until they stop moving. That's how these guys are supposed. That's the protocol. The protocol is not to go, stop, Mr. Runner. We'd like you to pause, please. For Pete's sake. Then the other thing you start thinking about is, okay, he bought his firearms legally in California. How the hell did he get them to Washington, D.C.?
A train.
Well, okay, because initially I thought it was a plane.
No, it's a train. Planes, trains, and automobiles, but it's a train now.
Yeah, so I was thinking if it's a plane, you got to fill out all this paperwork.
Right.
You've got to put it in special cases. It's got to be locked. On the train, you don't have to do that.
Mm-mm. So that's the story, yeah.
So he's 31 years old. Now, I know he's an engineering student and smart, but I'm not really he's not some firearms guy. No. I doubt that he on his own decided, you know what? I'll take a 2-day train to Washington, D.C. instead of a 5-hour flight to Washington,
right.
D.C. Yeah, that tells me somebody helped him. There was somebody else involved with this. This was not a lone wolf. Mm-hmm. So the story we're being told is bullshit.
Well, I want to show some clips of what Larry has already talked about so our viewers have some context. So here is a CCTV of the shooter coming into the building, allegedly. And I believe there is also some AI enhancements. So keep that in mind. This is not official footage or anything like that.
Lieutenant Hudson, you monitoring this area? Very good.
Shall I post it as soon as he passed down that?
18, go for
Shall I post it as soon as he passed down that?
18, go for
What an
so that hallway he came running down. They should have had a security checkpoint there, and that you stop there. They didn't. This is, like I said, this goes beyond a matter of, is it just incompetence? I personally believe this thing was staged. And I'm not saying that the guy didn't. He had a real gun, and he really thought he was there to kill people. I believe that. But in the same way we saw the FBI entice 4 guys up in Michigan to try to assassinate Gretchen Whitmire, the governor, that was a setup. And I think this is a similar kind of setup. This guy's been made into a patsy for some sort of narrative. We'll see what develops.
Yeah, I want to play this, and then I do want to ask you a question about that. The Patsy comment. Here's the scene when the shooting begins. Okay, so that scene is just odd to me. We have a magician there, or a mentalist, whatever you want to call it. He is there guessing the name of Caroline Leavitt's unborn child. That's what he holds up as the name. And then she turns and she's sort of terrified at these shots. And that's when we have that now famous shot of Trump looking at her and kind of smirking. There's really no reaction from the mentalist either. You mentioned Patsy. Now here we'll do a little tinfoil hat. I don't want to get anybody into trouble, but Sirhan, he was obviously a patsy. Some people have theorized that he's triggered by some sort of event or somebody saying something at the shooting, which sort of, because you're saying his name's Cole Allen, this shooter, is that he thought he was there, or he thought he was there for some other reason, and he did act in this way. That's what happened with Sirhan. He was there for a reason. He was triggered to act a certain way. This scene with the magic trick really just it unsettles me. He's an Israeli mentalist. He has also been the same mentalist who has revealed Joe Rogan's pin password for his ATM card, saying that he read his mind. Just very weird things. It was a very interesting trigger moment for that to happen. All the women go, because they're reacting to the magic trick, but at the same time, the shots are ringing out.
Yeah.
It's a weird scene.
Well, I mean, because when you run that one still photo makes it look like Trump's a little more concerned about it than when you look at the full clip. He's not reacting to the shot. He hears the shots. He's not reacting. That tells me he knew it was going to happen. Melania, though, is horrified. She's hearing the shot. She didn't know it was going to happen.
It was weird.
I mean, yeah, that's why. That's my interpretation. But so why would they do this? One reason is it makes Trump. Gives him some more sympathy at a time when he's bleeding support, big time. So the returns that, and it also feeds into this. I'm touched by God to lead. Because God saved my life in Butler, and I am destined by God to be this leader. It's sort of when you're a malignant narcissist like he is, that kind of stuff feeds in there big time. So
yeah, and let's take this is a better angle of the Vance debacle that you mentioned earlier. Here is the golden child, Vance, the golden calf, we'll call him, be evacuated.
Could you start that again? I want to mark the time when it starts. $20 seconds.
20. Yep. 20
So,
seconds.
yeah. So you're sitting there going, again, look, it's not my opinion. It is the Secret Service protocol that the primary person they are protecting is not J.D. Vance, unless he's now the acting president.
Another weird scene is Kash Patel. And this is because obvious, and I'm so glad I had you on today because I'm a lay person when it comes to this stuff. And it has me like, is this normal behavior or protocol? Obviously, I mean, I have a psych degree, but I don't know anything about law enforcement. But here's Kash Patel immediately following. And here he is outside.
Do you guys have any idea what happened in there?
Ma'am, I know. Yeah. Sorry.
Just meandering around, calling an Uber. Is this how we would expect the FBI director to react in this situation?
No, to say the least. Look. The other buddy I talked to, former member of the HRT, he's actually, he's a published writer. He did special operations with CIA. So, he's a serious guy, and he's not a partisan at all. He was actually you would have put him in the camp of a Trump supporter. But he is still in communication with people in the Bureau that, some he worked with years ago. And the stories about Kash Patel, that Atlantic article, only touches the surface. He does have a drinking problem. He is sleeping through. He's not showing up to meetings. He is using the HRT to provide security for his girlfriend. He needs to be fired. He is incompetent. Actually, I had thought, he used to work for Devin Nunes on the Intelligence Committee. The committee on the House, and actually he was the one that headed up I'm the one that told Devin about the fact that the Brits were spying on Trump and gave him the background and who to talk to, and then the subsequent investigation that Kash did was triggered by the information I provided to Devin. But man, what a disaster he is, and this is just. His behavior there yesterday was just sort of, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, speaking of drinking problems, here's the scene of the, I guess, regular folk, the correspondents.
Tragically, we've covered shootings, we've covered all sorts of scary and terrible events, but it's not often where you have a loved one next to you in that moment, and you're.
First of all, whoever that woman is, I love you. You're amazing. But is this normal? Like, why are people allowed to just be on the floor taking wine off the table?
It was on the table to be. They were going to consume it anyway. So why can't leave it to the hotel staff?
She's a hero for taking it, but I'm wondering why they're still there, even able to take things off the table. What is going on?
Yeah, well, so the guy never breached the main ballroom where everybody's sitting down to eat. They got him out. Oops, sorry. They got him out in the foyer. So again, and we don't have any good account. You'd think with all the cameras that show how he was apprehended. It's interesting we haven't seen that video.
No, just a picture of him on the ground unscathed.
Yeah.
Immediately following, we do get a press conference. I don't know. I'm not going to play any clips from that. But what I thought was weird was the way they were acting. I don't know if they were high, drunk. Let's say they were sober. Why? Look at them.
Yeah.
Look at them. I mean, this isn't a group of people who was just involved in like a near-death experience.
Yeah, well, it could have been, but it wasn't. And I was good because when I watched that thing live last night, and I didn't see JD, so and the fact that but the whole gang was there. I remember seeing Marco Rubio, some shots of him from the audience, and he was sort of looking around befuddled. This is again this kind of violence. This I believe, I think it was staged. How it was staged, I don't know. And when it's saying staged, I'm not saying there was not a real guy with a real gun wanting to actually do real harm. But to get to the question of how did he get put up to it? How did he come up with this? How did he get access? Who helped him? And for what purpose? You can come up with a variety of theories. So I don't,
You're not willing to come up with one yet?
well, one I could conceive of is again with Israel helping set this up in order to put more pressure on Trump to say, hey, man, this you are divinely selected. God's watching out for you. Because yeah.
Do you think Trump buys into that sort of?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely, because his, the type of dementia that he's experiencing, it sort of feeds into that malignant narcissism that he has. And I mean, look at the recent pictures he posted. He's a doctor healing a patient. I don't think so.
It's a Red Cross doctor.
Yeah. He's got the Jesus clothes on and he's got glowing hands. That's not doctor. That's not Dr. Kildare. Okay. He's got that all going on. The other pictures he posted of him and Jesus, like their arms around each other, hanging out. They've got, and that, his special minister, this Paula White, man, she's a nutcase.
Mm-hmm.
But
we love Paula White at DDG. We love Paula White.
The material, it writes itself. I understand. I get it.
Someone said the passion of the Trump. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. Let's see why. Well, what did we got the talking points? Talking points came out probably during or after the press conference. Here they are. Hundreds of tweets about a ballroom that would have had nothing to do with what happened last night.
Well, exactly. Look, if you don't put the security measures in place, I don't care what building you have, it's not going to be secure, even though you can design it with all the security features you want. Good Lord, 25 years ago, I did some work for the U.S. State Department. And it involved the security measures how do you test doors and windows for State Department buildings overseas? And they rate them as both a 30-minute door or a minute door, or a 30-minute window, a minute window. And how did they come up with this? I think they had some very technical scientific method. No, the actual instructions read, you get 5 guys who are between 5'8" and 6'3" that weigh between 170 and 260. And then you put out every possible tool that you could find at a hardware store, pickaxes, axes, sledgehammers, whatever, anything. And then you get a guy with a stopwatch and he goes, go. And you time him to see how long it takes him to get through the door. If it makes the 30 minutes, you go, okay, that's a 30-minute door. And then after an hour, if they're still not through, that's an hour door. That's how they do it. So, great. But build your ballroom with a 30-minute door or an hour door. But if you don't control who you let through that door, and you don't set up positions that could deter somebody from moving forward, it doesn't matter whether you got so-called bullet-resistant glasses. Not
exactly my thoughts too. It's we're now working with our 3rd assassination attempt, so that means that there's obviously a breach in security. It has nothing to do with the venue. So changing the facade isn't going to change the fact that we have if this is real, we have a huge failure in security.
Well, and that's the theme. That who's been in charge of each of these sites? Secret Service. Secret Service is broken. Secret Service is not properly led. They're not doing their job. So you have to step back. Why? Why aren't they doing their job? Now, this didn't. Now, the other thing that makes me think that this whole thing is staged is immediately after it happened, it's being portrayed as an assassination attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the guy didn't even get close to shoot at anybody other than the police officers outside. And again, he was shooting at those officers, and they didn't light him up. You know, I live in Florida. I'm just south of Polk County, where there's a famous sheriff, Grady Judd, because Grady was asked about 3 years ago. One of his deputies was shot and killed by a guy, and so they chased down the guy that killed the deputy, and they shot him. And one of the reporters asked Grady, "Why did you shoot this man 65 times?" And Grady said, "Because we ran out of bullets."
Exactly.
Okay. So here's the number of people, those security personnel that were out in that hallway and going up, they were armed, and they didn't put a single hole in this guy.
I've worked security at the gate of military bases. You're allowed to draw your weapon if someone drives through the gate. You're allowed to shoot them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if someone runs by a Secret Service person, I would think that your immediate reaction would be to neutralize that threat or neutralize whatever it is and find out what it is after.
Yeah. The use of lethal force, particular for the Secret Service, is if somebody has a weapon and is moving in the direction of the president, you shoot them. You don't stop to ask, "Hey, what are you doing there? Is that a real gun?" No, you shoot them, put them down, and them's the rules. And that's the thing. I'm looking at that guy, and I said, you basically run that whole gauntlet, and then somehow they get you to the ground, and you don't have not one bullet hole.
Exactly. Someone said there was 5 shots shot off, but an officer was injured, but they missed the perpetrator every time. So they shot each other, if it were to believe that story.
Yeah.
Last thing before we wrap, his manifesto came out today. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
Really, really weird.
Yeah.
Really weird. I just want to ask you about some things in it. Hello, everybody. What a strange way to open up a manifesto, but hello, everybody is obviously weird. And then he goes on to apologize to everyone whose trust I abused. The interesting thing here is that we talked about the train ride across the
right.
country. Now, this is something that Attorney General Blanche mentioned this morning. He got into a fight with one of the news anchors and said, he took them on a train and we don't need to strengthen laws or security. Well, it's very weird that he addresses being on the train in the manifesto. He apologizes to everyone I traveled next to and everyone who handled his luggage. Why? Why would he apologize to those people? He says, again, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so this is a continuing gap in security, that if you're going to carry a firearm on an airplane, you got to fill out paperwork. You have to inform them. You have to have a locked case, separate ammunition, etc. Train, you just walk on with it. As long as you're not flashing the weapon, you can carry concealed. Which, I'd say that this justifies you. You know what? There ought to be the kind of security screening that you're not allowed to bring that kind of weapon on board a plane, or on board a train.
Through a metal detector when you go on the subway in Russia. Like it's not difficult. This is it's rocket science.
Right.
There's a guards in there and a metal detector. Let's keep going. So he goes on and he doesn't name Trump, which is very interesting. He says, "I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes." He never mentions Trump's name, which I thought was interesting. Someone this angry at Trump would mention his name. Then he says, "I'll go over my expected rules of engagement." Why? Why would he do this? And then he says, "Administration officials, not including Mr. Patel." Okay. Why? And then he mentions something about shooting people with shotguns and hoping that they're wearing body armor because shooting them with a shotgun without it would obviously mess them up. But then later on, he says, in order to minimize casualties, I will be using buckshot instead of slugs. This is like the most bizarre. This isn't even the weirdest part of it.
Yeah.